Our closing speaker for this morning is a former three-time #1 ranked Navy SEAL platoon commander who has also been awarded more than 40 patents, which have sold over 10 million products and counting worldwide. He's created 5 #1 ranked infomercials, achieved 5 #1 top-selling products on Amazon.com, and is the author of Be Unstoppable, the 8 Essential Actions to Succeed at Anything. In his 25 years of military and business leadership, he has learned a few things about enabling people to achieve more than what they originally thought possible. And he's excited to be here to share his message with us today. You may have seen him around the conference this weekend, but now please help me welcoming to the stage Alden Mills.
Thanks a lot, Craig. It is such a thrill to be here today. You see, when I was in SEAL team, I had the opportunity to work with a few farmers. And one of the first things we did when we were out, and we ended up going on a mission together with a farmer, we were all so focused on this technology that we had on this particular mission. We were in Bosnia, we were looking for a real bad guy. But we had this technology that wasn't working. And it was this autofocus on this digital SLR camera. And all of us were focused on how to get this autofocus to work so we could capture the picture of this guy and bring him to justice. And the farmer comes to us and he goes, the problem is we just need to put a pothole in the street to slow the car down and the autofocus will catch up to it. We spent the next 3 days digging a pothole in the middle of the night. That was the common sense of a farmer. It made it work for us. It was the resourcefulness. I grew up with my grandparents who had a farm. My grandfather was a large animal vet. And a large animal vet, every once in a while I'd have the opportunity to go out and see the process firsthand. Now a farm in Massachusetts where I grew up is like a backyard playground for you here in Kansas. I'm talking about 40 acres. But I got a firsthand experience for farmers and what they really care about. You see, they really care about the land, and I understand that. And a lot of people in America may not understand it. I get it. It's a treat to be here today, and it's also really appreciative of the Kansas Farm Bureau, how much they care about farmers. Thank you for bringing me here today, Rich, Terry, and John Deere. That new tractor you have, that 9RX, that thing is a transformer. I want one of those things. Today we're going to talk about a book that I wrote 3 years ago to my 4 little boys. The book's called Be Unstoppable, and at the end of the day, the whole thing is about focusing in on the things you can control. In the world of more and more technology, the only things that you can control, the only things that you can make a difference on are actions and attitude. That's what I'm talking about. That's the only thing I want you to walk away from on this. But I want you to understand what powers action and attitude. I want you to understand how it can change the direction of what you do. I appreciate there's no other industry in the country that I could be speaking with 6th-generation business owners. I'd have to go to Europe and talk to a monarchy to look for a 6th generation. But not in America. Not with the farmers. You have a double challenge. You got to keep that farm going for the next generation, and you got to keep putting food on the plate. And trust me, with a father of 4 little boys, I get the importance of food on the table. So I'm going to tell you, I could really talk about this in 3 areas. We're going to talk about a little science. I'm going to bring you back to science class, and then I'm going to tell you some SEAL stories. And then I'm going to go through and tell you some startup stories, and I'm going to remind you time and time again that it's about actions and attitude and the people that you associate with. You see, I love heavy equipment. Ever since I was a kid, the first thing I learned was how to drive a tractor, and I also figured out when I got my hand-me-down Reliant K station wagon, they can't go through mud like a tractor. But when I was in SEAL team, I tried to find the most awesome piece of weapon system like a tractor I could find. And that was this. It took me 4 years to learn how to use this system. 20 years ago, it was completely classified. Today it's not. Popular Mechanics broke it. Let the world know about it. The system is called an SSN DDS SDV system. It's a fancy way for saying that's a 500-foot long ballistic nuclear submarine with 2 garages. And let's see if I get this right. That's a garage right there. And outside of that is the tractor. It's a 20-foot long SDV. That's a SEAL delivery vehicle. In the military, if you were to look that up, that's classified combat mini-submersible. It's electric. It's flooding. And that's what it looks like underwater. When I mean flooding, that's really important to understand flooding. Because you have to have your own thermal protection. You have to have your own breathing apparatus. And you're sitting in there with just a couple other guys. And you're looking at this sonar screen that looks like channel 999 on your TV. And you're talking like Charlie Brown's teacher back and forth to each other. But this weapon system is a really amazing platform. You see, we're the only ones in the world. We share it with one other country, our brothers in Britain. And what it allows you to do is to put this 500-foot long nuclear ballistic submarine out in international waters. And some daring guys, they launch and they go into territorial waters. I've done dives that have taken 12 hours. I've gone completely hypothermic to the point where my guts have totally cramped. They bring you in and they pull you out of it, and you're in this like fetal position. They bring you into the submarine and they slowly warm you back up. And I loved it. I loved it. This would be where I sat right there. That's the mission commander, and that is your pilot. Together, that's your swim buddy. When I say swim buddy, that's what I'm talking about. It's always a team, and it starts with 2. But when it first started out, after 4 years, and I went to the Naval Academy, so it was 8 years by the time I got to go and do a mission like that. Right before I go out on deployment, the commanding officer brings me in. And he says 2 things to me. First thing, Mills, you're about to deploy, give me your letter. Letter. I'm not tracking with you, sir. What kind of letter are you talking about? Look, you come back on your shield. Don't leave me with just a flag to give to your next of kin. You're going to write a just-in-case letter. You're going to have it on my desk by 0700 the next morning. And don't you forget, when you write that letter, it's the last piece of authentic communication your family will ever hear from you. That's a powerful thing when you're 26 years old, going out with the first time. My next of kin were my mom, my dad, and my brother. What do you say when you're going to go out and not know if you're going to come back? And when he's talking about coming back on your shield, that's what he's talking about. You're coming back, you gave the ultimate sacrifice to your country. Well, I sat down, and it was pretty easy thinking about for my brother, because there were a few things I needed to make amends for. One of them was, I'm sorry I broke those matchboxes. I'm sorry I threw a rock at your head. I broke your bike. Here's what I'm going to do for you. Here's my Jeep. I had a used CJ7, and I gave him my watch that I got from college. That's all I owned. That's it. That's all I had. And to my dad, I said, hey, Dad, thanks for letting me do what I loved. That was awesome. And then to my mom. See, my mom, she was kind of like a swim buddy for me in the beginning, because I was the sickly one in the family. I'd had pneumonia more than 3 times already. By the time I was 12, I'd had bronchitis 12 times. We lived in a small rural town in Massachusetts, and one day when I was 12, she brought me up to the doctor in the big city. He had me blow in a couple of different apparatuses, and I'm trying to keep this little ping pong ball in this area. And the doctor figured out real quick. He goes, that's it. That's good. We're good. Please sit down. Mrs. Mills, let me tell you what's wrong with your son. You see, he has small lungs. He's talking to us like I'm a little kid when I was 12, but Anyhow, he then goes, he has asthma. He needs to lead a less active lifestyle. I suggest he learns to play chess. Okay, that hit me like a 2x4. My mom, Alden, please go wait outside. I come back and I'm sitting there and the tears are dripping down. I mean, I'm feeling really sorry for myself. I can feel it. And I'm sobbing here on the corner. I'm just sitting there, and my mom comes in, and she kept these nails, and she kept them long, and I swear she kept them long just for these kind of moments. They were weapons. And she came over, and she dug it in my arm. She goes, "What's wrong with you? Why are you crying?" "Mom, chess? I can't even play checkers." And she's like, "Forget about that. I want you to remember something. You remember, nobody tells you what you can and can't do. Nobody defines a limit for you. You must define your limit." I didn't catch the first 5 times she told me, but after a couple of years, I got it. And shortly thereafter, 8 years from that moment, I was showing up to go through SEAL training. And in SEAL training, they teach you that the real weapon system isn't the SDV, the DDS, or the ballistic nuclear submarine that you're on. The real weapon system is this. They call it a weapons platform. You see, the whole thing about SEAL training is based on the individual. It's based on the weapon between the brain and the body, and who's going to be in charge, who's going to decide to get out of that cold water, and who's going to stay. I could replace this entire slide and put a bunch of really cool John Deere tractors up there and a bunch of other tools, but at the end of the day, it comes down to the individual. And then it comes down to the individual that teams up with other like-minded individuals. You see, they call it SEAL team training, but at the end of the day, they break you down to your studs as an individual, and then they bring you back up and bring you in with other people that are like-minded. And then they give you a support structure that allows you to go out there and give it all you got. So if you look at the weapon system, if you really break it down, we're going to go into a little science. Stay with me, it's not going to be long. But there's some important things I want you to understand. If you think about it, there's only really 3 things we got. We got our brain, we got our body, and we got that spark. The spark is what I call emotions. You see, if you look at the building blocks of these 3 systems, the most important thing is that. Science 101. Probably been a little while. That's a neuron. Today, scientists tell us we got 86 billion of them sitting in our head. By the way, they didn't always know that. In the last 15 years, there have been bigger breakthroughs in neuroscience than the rest of the history of mankind in studying the brain. But the neuron is the action cell. The neuron is the cell that tells you what you can or can't do. The neuron is the one that makes your arms move, your legs move, gives you the emotion. And the way it happens is it happens with some fuel. You heard Vance yesterday talk about dopamine real quick. Those are the hormones that come from your body and your brain. I call it rocket fuel because there's a bunch of different hormones that trigger. But what you're looking at there is a neural pathway. The neural pathway is what you build when you learn something. The neural pathway only happens when the brain is challenged. It only happens when you are challenged. It does not happen when you sit back and decide, yeah, I'll just think about it. The neural pathway needs the body to be activated to fire up the rocket fuel to make the neural pathways happen. So what's the breakthrough? In 1998, the doctors realized that we can perform neurogenesis in our body. You see, up until this point, doctors thought we came pre-wired. Now, this is true to a point. The brain does come pre-wired, and it's an important thing, and you learn about this in SEAL training. It comes pre-wired to survive. You need to know that because you're going to have to fight it. Because your brain doesn't want to use energy. Your brain is the #1 energy-sucking system on your body. It's 2 times more energy required for your brain to operate than anything else in your body. To build a neural pathway, you have to get out of your comfort zone. In neurogenesis, it turns out we can continue to build neurons throughout our entire life. Up until 1998, everyone said, that's it. By the time you're 30, you're set, your pathways are done. The old adage, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, it may work with the canine species, but it's not true for the human species. It's an important thing to understand, especially when you're looking from 6th generation to 7th generation of how are we going to keep the farm going? How are we going to continue to open our minds? The neural pathway works with the body. You know the body system, the skeletal structures, got over 200 bones. You've got the muscular system. Those are the levers that make the body work. You got to remember, I did 15 years in a physical fitness company. But then from there, you've got the cardiovascular system. These three systems overlay to each other, and they work with the brain. In SEAL team, they'll go, the body obeys the brain, boys. The body obeys the brain. That's the only thing they would talk about for the first 7 weeks of training through Hell Week. Body obeys the brain. Your body is a brain housing group. That would be the next thing they remind you of. You see, your entire body is built to support your brain. It's the only organ that can't be transplanted. The body and the brain work completely together. The stronger the body, the stronger the brain. The more you end up, it turns out if the body gets to 70% of its heart rate during work is just mass acceleration distance, that's all it is. I'm not talking about trying to be a triathlete, it's work. It proves that when you get to 70% of your heart rate, your neural pathways start to activate. The rocket fuel starts going. The rub is, you got this system. This system is wired to survive. We are the only species of Homo sapien that has been able to survive because we have figured out how to survive again and again and again. And that means having to deal with conserving energy and staying in a comfort zone, staying out of the danger zone. But then you have these emotions. The emotions they are worked into 3 basic emotional patterns. This is Psychology 101. That would be the feel, the behave, and the believe. Those 3 make up your attitudes. Those are the throttle that overrides the brain and the body. So when you're sitting in the cold water suffering, the attitude's the one that says, I'm either going to stay or I'm going to go. When you're sitting on a farm and everyone's going, hey, that can't be done, that's not going to happen. An attitude's got a trigger. An attitude's either going to trigger to put the brakes on or move that little throttle from turtle to rabbit. That's the one we had on our John Deere. It had a little turtle to rabbit throttle. Mine, I think of it like a boat. But you think that it's not, and I'm not talking about a positive attitude. I'm talking about an attitudinal system of opening your mind, a can-do attitude. Because when all those fire, they have an award in SEAL training. It's called fire in the gut. And when you get fire in the gut, that means you're ready to go. That means you're ready to take on anything. That means you were able to look at the impossible and say, I think I can do that, or I'm going to die trying. Speaking of dying trying, that was science class, by the way. This is what greets you when you walk in to your first day of SEAL training. He's a creature from the Black Lagoon, and he says this, so you want to be a frogman. And the day I showed up, we had 122 men from around the country that showed up for SEAL training. They had all gone through at least a year's worth of evaluations to get to see this guy, the creature, the frog monster. 122 guys for a year had passed the push-ups, the pull-ups, the sit-ups, the running, the swimming. And we went through a little pre-phase training, and then your first day of class up starts. Your first day of class up where you get this senior SEAL instructor. And I'll never forget him. You don't forget many guys that are missing their entire left buttocks from a rocket-propelled grenade in Vietnam. He had medals over his shoulder. And he'd stand out there in front of us, and he'd say, I got the secret for getting you through SEAL team, boys. It's real simple. You just got to know what price you're going to pay. You know the price you're going to pay. You're welcome aboard. Come on in. See, the problem is 80% of you are not going to pay the price. You won't pay the price because everyone wants to be a SEAL on a sunny day. But what happens when the day doesn't go your way? What happens when the day gets scary and you think you might die? That's my job here, and that's what we're going to do. For the 20% of you that stick around, we're going to treat you like a samurai sword. You see, this is how they build a samurai sword. They take a piece of metal, and they heat it up, they pound on it, and they stick it in cold water. They do it about 2,000 times. That's about what we figure it's going to take you civilians to turn into SEALs. Welcome to SEAL training. That was real motivating to hear we're going to get pounded on that many times. But by the end of the first day, just to start the class up, that 122 went to 64. Half of the people that showed up who had spent a year left. Why would they do that? They spent an entire year to get to the starting line, and they didn't even take the first step. Their actions had them walk the other way because their attitude just put the brakes on and said, whoa, 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 samurai sword? What is this pounding on? 80%? I'll never make it. They quit before they even tried. So every week, see, the first 6 weeks is the real weed out in SEAL team. And every week there's a pass-fail challenge. Now, a pass-fail challenge is a really important challenge. This is not like Survivor. This is like, if you don't pass this thing, that's it. You're gone. You're gone to the fleet. And you're gone to the fleet for 2 to 4 years. And you spent all this time. So the first pass-fail challenge is one that really, it kind of rocks you. Because you all think, at this point, we're 64 of us, we're like, oh, no problem. We're going to pay the price. We're ready. You learn quickly how valuable talk is. And they say, hey guys, and the SEAL instructors they're kind of friendly. It's a weird thing. It's not like you're going through some kind of yelling drill instructor. They got this Joker smile on them. Come on over to the pool. Everybody sit down here, relax for a minute, because I'm going to tell you about the first pass-fail challenge. You're going to swim for 200 meters, and you're going to float, just relax in the pool for another 10 minutes, and then you're going to bob up and down for 5 minutes, and then go down to the deep end of the pool and pick the mask off the ground with your teeth. It's not hard. I'm like, oh, what's the catch? Oh, I forgot to tell you. We're going to tie your feet together and tie your hands behind your back. What? Wait a minute, I passed the swim test. What do you mean? Yeah, welcome to drown proofing. What is the point of that, right? Your head's going through, the voices in your head are like, whoa, 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 what's this got to do with SEAL training? Are we supposed to is this a technique if you get captured by pirates and they're going to make you walk the plank that you can swim away? No. Look at that guy right there. This guy, he's in the hurt locker. But the fact of the matter was, 2 guys got up and walked out. Didn't even try. Went from 64 to 62, just like that. It turns out drown proofing is not that bad. It's uncomfortable, but it's not that bad because they start off and they just strap your legs together and you swim in the pool learning how to use both your feet together. And then they have a hold of rope and you go like this and you move up and down and you start to learn how to move your body like a dolphin. It's slow, it kind of looks like an inchworm, but you start to make progress. And then at the end, they teach you how to use your lungs as a buoyancy compensator. That enables you to bob up and down. And then you're ready to pass the exam. And here's a funny thing. Every one of us that tried that We didn't get it right at first. And you know what the SEAL instructors did? They helped us. You said they wanted us to pass. But you had to try first. And this is going to be a recurring theme here. You see, the Kansas Farm Bureau is the same thing as the SEAL instructors. They're here to help you, but you got to try. And these people, the people that just walked out, they just gave up. Well, you got a bunch more pass-fail challenges after that. But they throw these impossibles in at you because they want you to see how you're going to respond when when everyone else goes, that's not possible. It's just not possible. They just shut down. An attitude of can't overrides the brain and the body, and that's it. Hell Week is the big eliminator of folks. Hell Week goes from Sunday night to Friday afternoon. You get a total of 3.5 hours of sleep. They have around-the-clock instructors. 8-hour shifts come in, and that's the real samurai sword building. Now, I don't know about you. Well, you guys maybe have gone through some Hell Weeks in the calving process. I talked to some farmers last night about it, but weird things happen when you have no sleep for that long period of time. And it really does bring you down to what matters most to you. And right before Hell Week, things are tense because you don't know what's going to happen. It's the inevitable of walking off a ledge going, I wonder if I'm going to be able to survive this. And in the week prior to Hell Week, I had one of these guys, and by the way, I'm now down to less than 40 people in the class, and I'm the last officer. And I'm as greenhorn as they could be. An ensign. That's like a second lieutenant. And this kid comes up to me and he says, "Sir, I want you to know I'm not going to quit Hell Week." Like, we'll call him Seaman Schmuckatelli. I go, "Seaman Schmuckatelli, that's fantastic. How do you know you're not going to quit?" "Well, sir, I was here 2 years ago and I quit. And I quit because of the cold water. So I've been taking showers, cold showers for 2 years. I'm ready." What? I mean, I just sat there and I'm like, are you kidding me? You taking cold showers for 2 years? I didn't have the heart to tell him, well, who was controlling the faucet? Because it doesn't matter if you control the faucet, right? You can decide when you shut it off. It's just like farming, right? Farming would be easy if you could control the weather, relatively. Well, guess what happened to Seaman Schmuckatelli? He didn't control the faucet when we got put it in the waves, and he was gone. 2 guys. It was really 1 guy. He started it. Right before Hell Week, the day before Hell Week, the instructors say, "Hey, please go clean out our office." Kind of a bizarre request, but we have to clean it usually on Mondays, not on Fridays. And 1 guy comes back, he comes running up to me and he goes, "Sir, you're never going to believe what I got." I go, "What'd you get?" "I got the Hell Week schedule." I'm like, "I don't want to see it. Put it away. I don't even want to see it." "No, no, no. You can't believe this. Look at all this stuff." And he's flipping through it. I'm 100% certain those instructors left that thing out on their desk for exactly what happened next. He started going around and talking to everybody he could. "This isn't possible. Look at this. These guys are coming in again and again. It says we're going to get 3 hours and 15 minutes of sleep. That's their target for us in December. This can't be possible." He grabbed 1 more guy, convinced another guy. And then, by the end of it, we're down to 34 to start Hell Week. They tell you that you never forget your first quitter, and you don't, because I didn't. And our first quitter happened Sunday night. Down to 34, started from 122, classed up 64, and you're at 34. I thought, okay, we're going to have what's called a no-bell hell. Hell for Hell Week, no bell. Bell is when you ring out. And you have this instructor. I'm going to call him Instructor Boston. He was particularly demented. We all are out there. It's about midnight. And he goes, "Yo, Ensign Mills, I want you to go take all your little maggots and go sit in the surf zone. You stink. Let's wash off the stink." Yeah, Instructor Boston. "Go ahead. March, about face, link arms, sit down." They've linked arms, they're sitting down. Now this is at night, those are small waves, these are winter waves. It's about 58 degrees. "Now Ensign Mills, I got this box. You see all these boxes around me? These are pop flares. And a pop flare goes for 54 seconds. Watch. Lights up the sky. It's raining out, about 45 degrees. All the old guard of SEALs are out there, and they're watching the youngest new guard go through the indoctrination. Now, I'm going to fire off these pop flares sequentially. For you rocket scientists out there, that means one after the other. And I got 181 of these pop flares. 54 seconds. Do the math, Einstein. I'm looking for my first quitter. So, what do? You start singing your class song. Our class song, "She's a grand old flag," and your waves are, fires off, we sing the song again. "She's a grand old," fires off another one. You can tell he's starting to get a little bored. It's about 6 pop flares into it. He's got this megaphone. "Hey, Doc, bring the ambulance over here. And open it up. Let the boys see inside." Ambulance, specially converted Ford 350, big beach tires, really cool vehicle. Drives up, and I swear to you, they purposely heat that box up on the back. When that door opened, you could see a plume of heat. And you're sitting there like, whoa, wouldn't it be nice to sit in that ambulance? "Hey, boys, you know what's inside that ambulance? Hot cocoa and warm blankets." Who wants some hot cocoa and warm blankets? Nobody. But we thought about it. We stopped singing for a second. He doesn't get the desired result. "Hey, Doc, come over here. Let's do a lesson on hypothermia." "Doc, tell the boys about hypothermia." This doctor, and he's the head of the medical department for SEAL team. We know him. He gets out and he's cold, and he's like, "Well, clinical hypothermia is a 2-degree drop in the body core temperature from 98.6 to 96.6. "Doc, that's great, but what does that really mean to these guys? Like, what happens when you get hypothermia?" "Well, the first case is you start to shiver uncontrollably." Boom. We all start. Like, we're sitting there going, "Oh, all of a sudden we got cold. Here's this expert, he's telling us, oh, we're cold." Nothing happens. "Doc, how cold is that water?" It's about 58 degrees. "Oh, how long does it take to get hypothermia for a human being in 58-degree water?" Somewhere around 7 to 10 minutes, Instructor Boston. Oh, look at that. Boys, you're hypothermic. Hey, Doc, what happens to people with hypothermia if they stay in the water longer? You actually stop shivering after a while, and the blood starts leaving the brain, and your memory goes, and you stop forgetting what you're doing, and you get slurred speech, and come on, Doc, get to the punchline. Well, you could die. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that, Doc. He said you could die, boys. You could die. You guys really want to die for this? There's hot cocoa right over there. What's the problem with you? Just then, First quitter breaks out, right out of the surf torture. He walks up, and he was my senior enlisted guy. I only had one petty officer second class. Everybody else were junior guys, along with me. And he walks up to Instructor Boston, and he goes, Instructor Boston, I'll take some of that hot cocoa and warm blankets. I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're asking from me. I'm saying I don't want this anymore. Could you say it a little louder? I need to hear the words. I quit. Oh, I quit. Hey guys, I got my first quitter. And he turns the megaphone straight to the petty officer and he goes, I got nothing for quitters. Get out of here. And he walked the quitter through the other guys to a different division. And the division is called X Division. And it's where all the people go that don't make it. You see, SEAL Team is very particular about the attitudes that they want to have in training. Everybody that doesn't make it is removed from the people that are trying. And the people that are trying, they know those guys are precious. They're trying to do something that's incredible for them. And they have a log. You see, we do a lot of training with telephone poles. And they have this particularly big log. And it's called Old Misery. And the reason they create X Division is they know a very simple fact. And you know it in the farming community is one bad apple can spoil the bunch. The bad apple, what we're talking about? We're talking about a bad attitude. And here, it's misery loves company. The guys that went and stole that Hell Week schedule, they convinced themselves. They went around and were trying to get other people to say, no, you don't want to do this. One guy turns to another guy and says, dude, I don't think I can do this. Me neither, I'm out of here. And drown proofing. You see, in SEAL Team, in a lot of ways, it's a lot easier to succeed. Yes, it's an 80% dropout rate. But if you really want it, they're going to help you get it. As a civilian, as I learned, it's a lot harder. I do this storyline for my 4 little boys, and I talk to them about the tribe of the Cants and the Cans. And I tell them about the Miserables and the Incredibles, and how the Miserable tribe is a much bigger tribe than the Incredibles, the people that are trying to do things that are incredible. And that's the X Division. And I would say to you that the Kansas Farm Bureau would say the Incredibles are in this room. The people that are continually getting up and trying are the ones that make America great. It's what separates us from everybody else out there that is just saying all the reasons why it can't be done. If you look hard enough, you will find every reason under the book why farming is a bad thing to do. If I looked hard enough, I would have found a whole bunch of reasons why not to launch this first product. That was my first product after SEAL Team. You know what it is? Anybody? That was part of the problem. You see, it doesn't quite look like a fitness product. I was so excited. We were going to save the world from excess pounds with the Rev. I went around, over 2 years, I raised $1.5 million to launch my baby, Body Rev. I then spent the next 2 years in $1,475,000 worth of ways not to launch a product. I'm brought to the gates. A small core of my investors come to me and they say, Alden, you've been doing a good job. We really appreciate it. We know that you've given it everything you've got. It's over. You have $25,000 left in the bank. Pay the lawyers off. It's done. You're starting to embarrass yourself. Who are those guys to tell me that I'm embarrassing myself? This was my dream. One of these guys was a hedge fund manager. He didn't know anything about launching a product. Another guy was like a stockbroker. They didn't sit in my shoes. By that point, my neural pathway was made. No, I got more in me. I got another way. I'm not going to quit, but I'm going to pivot. You learn a lot about pivot, whether you're starting a business or you're going out on a SEAL mission. So I pivoted. With $25,000, I launched that product. Anybody ever seen one of those? Perfect push-up? Anyone ever used one? That's good. There's about 6 million Americans out there using it today. But I launched that with $25,000. It was a totally new business. But you know what I didn't do? I didn't wash my investors out. I said, no, you're going to come. I brought them all back in. I'm like, I'm going to get your money back. I'm not giving up. Because it was so important to me. I had built such an important care for what I was going to do. This purpose inside of me, I was going to make it work. And we did. But we started off real small. Everyone thinks, oh yeah, you were the overnight success. You get interviewed on NBC, they go, yeah, that's incredible. You just came out of nowhere. No! It was 10 years of an overnight success. And the best part is that the hardest part hadn't even occurred yet. You see, when I launched that product, I had less than $25,000. I had talked to my manufacturers who became my partners, and I said, listen, I'll figure out a way to pay you, but I need one container. I just need one container. I got to try it out. I got 4,000 of these units over here. I could find one catalog company in the country that would be willing to put it in there, and they bought them on consignment, but they took it. Small little catalog company in New England. And then I went and I called up Outside Magazine, Men's Journal, Men's Fitness, and I bought little tombstone ads in the back. It was down to about $10,000 by the end of it. And 2.5 years later, and I worked on that story real hard. You see, I didn't have the story right with the rev, but I got the story right with the perfect push-up. We get a call from Inc. magazine, and they say, hey, we've been looking at your financials. Is this really true? Did you really have a 12,000% growth rate and go from 400,000 to 63 million in 3 years? Yeah, that's true. Why? That makes you the 4th fastest growing company in the country and the fastest growing consumer products company. The other ones were insurance and financial ahead of me. We want to interview you. Well, how'd you do it? And the way we did it was exactly the same way that you get up every morning and you go to work. The way we did it is we kept the actions and the attitude going and not listening to the people out there that were saying, you can't do it. That's how it happened. But then we were feeling really good, too good. We were going to be a push-up company. Wow, isn't this great? We're going to sell push-ups to everybody in the world. It turns out not everybody in the world needs push-ups. And then January 2009 comes along, and the lights go out at retail. You drop from 63 million to 19 million in a year. For you young farmers out there, that's bad. When your bank then pulls out from you, and then 4 months later, after I've gone through all these interviews talking about how great I am, I'm talking about considering looking at bankruptcy alternatives. That does not feel good. So we had 2 things we had to do. One, we had to restructure that business real quick. Thankfully, we were able to do it. But the other thing we had to do was keep the mindset open and looking right and looking left. Now, I don't know farming, but I know there's all kinds of different crops. I know there's all kinds of different animals out there in livestock. And for me, this is where my products went to. Real quick, I got religion on different types of products that I could sell. I got into cut and sew. I got into rubber. I got into bending steel. We started making a whole lot of products. But the good news was, you see, our retailers and our customers, they believed in us, they trusted us. Because we made great products. Just the same way that you make great product for America. So when you're sitting out there and you're thinking about the next generation and how you're going to keep your farm going, I appreciate that the generations that came before you, they're wheat farmers. You're a wheat farmer. But sometimes there's going to be a pivot. Sometimes you're going to have to look left and you're going to look right. And maybe you'll also remember the science class that I just told you, even if you're 40 or 50 or 60, wait a minute, I can still learn something new. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be a challenge. But you can do it. But it's got to come from inside. And when you look left and you look right, the real swim buddies, you see what I didn't tell you is after you make it through Hell Week, you get assigned your swim buddy. And when you get assigned your swim buddy, do you know what the failure rate is at that point? It's really just medical drops. You see, Hell Week is just the 6th week of training. It goes for 25 weeks. And then you go for 2 more years of advanced training in SEAL team. But you got your swim buddy now. You know who your swim buddies are here? Well, if you brought your bride, you're looking at her. I guarantee you, if you're thinking of new ways to create business, every time I look at a new product, women are buyers. They know stories. Don't ever forget, creating products, I don't care what it is, whether you're like Neiman Ranch out in California. Neiman Ranch, raised with care. That guy was a hippie from Minnesota elementary school and created a great meat product company. Napa Valley. Napa Valley's gone through all kinds of ups and downs, and then a great farmer marketer, Mondavi, comes along and goes, hey, let's take on Paris. And he broke through the noise by winning out in 1976 and showing people that great wine could be grown. You're going to have your own challenges, but I'm telling you, every great challenge is a great opportunity. So I'm going to give you one last SEAL story. One of the most terrifying things you do is you go through Halo. Halo training is high altitude, low opening. You jump at 14,000 feet for your first jump. You're standing on the ramp of a C-130, and the instructor is looking at you. I'm in the Clydesdale class, over the 220-pound class. He's a big master sergeant from the Air Force. And he looks at me and he goes, "Sir, will you jump?" Now, my heels are on that ramp. There's 14,000 feet is right below me. And I have to pull my own parachute. And I stand to him and I go, I was too scared to even say anything. He goes, "I got one last thing to tell you." And I'm thinking, what? Right now? I'm about to jump. You have the rest of your life to open your parachute. He flipped me out of that airplane, and I flipped around like 4 or 5 times. And I finally got flat and stable, and I'm like this, and he zooms down, and he's got this funny looking face on, and he's like, "That's about 50 seconds. Poof. But that's my point, guys. You got the rest of your lives to figure out how to face the challenges, the rest of your lives, to write the letters to the next generation to say, "Woo! We're from Kansas and we can do in Kansas." That's what it's about. Thank you. God bless you, and go be unstoppable, Kansas. You have no idea how much this fires me up! Kansas! Thank you. And thank you, John Deere and Kansas Farmers Bureau.
Well, thank you very much for speaking to us and inspiring everyone. And we'd like to send you home with a little token of our appreciation, a Kansas Farmer book.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been a real honor.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless.